Hello from Gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and welcome to this orchid video. So today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to head out to my cool greenhouse to water and feed the orchids that I keep out there, and I'm going to tell you how I'm implementing what I learned during my recent visit to the orchid house in Kew Gardens. So if you missed that video, do check it out. I'll link to it at the very end. I had a behind the scenes look at the growing houses in Kew. It was really cool. And what we're also going to do today is we're going to take a look at my warm indoor orchids, specifically the ones in bloom and in bud, many of which you see behind me. So lots of exciting things to do. Let's get on with the video. So we're all set up here to make up the feed for my orchids in the greenhouse, and what I've got here is a watering can which I filled with tap water. Now my pH is sufficient for orchids, and my TDS doesn't seem to be too bad as well, because this is what I've always done and it seems to work fine. So I filled up the watering can. I'm going to fill it up to 9 litres here. I've got cold water, and I'm also going to add in a boiling kettle of water just to bring the ambient temperature up a little bit. And we don't want to shock those orchids even though they're cold orchids. So we just put that in there and give it a bit of a stir around. And this is, next up what we're going to do is make up the feed for the Cymbidiums. They're the first ones I'm going to feed. And in October and November what I do is feed my Cymbidiums tomato food, full strength tomato food. It's a trick that was taught to me many years ago, and it has served me in good stead. Now you may say, oh my goodness, what about magnesium or calcium or other elements that the plants might need? Well, for the rest of the year you use your normal feed, but October and November, when the buds are forming, to make them nice and strong, I use full strength tomato feed. So I follow the measurements on the can, and for 9 litres we're going to use 1 capful, which I put in there. And what I'm also going to feed them is Epsom salts, and I've just put a few Epsom salts in here in this little cup, and the measurement here is half a teaspoon for about 7 litres of water. So I've got 9 litres there, so I'm going to use a bit more than half a teaspoon. So I don't know. I mean, obviously each teaspoon is different as well, so it's not a precise measurement. But Epsom salts are great for keeping spider mite away. And yeah, so I'm going to do that. We're going to give it all a stir around. And incidentally, this is also the feeding mixture I use for my cattleyas in October and November. Not for the rest of the year, just for October and November. That a good mix, and I'm just going to test the temperature, and it's nice and warm. So I guess let's go out to the greenhouse. Shall we brave the elements outside? Really blustery day today. And we're in the greenhouse now, where I'm going to deal with my cold orchids. And the first port of call is to water the Cymbidiums. Now some of you will have seen my recent Cymbidium repotting video, where I repotted this big brute here and divided it and got rid of the spent back pseudobulbs. And if you didn't see that video and you want to, I'll link to it at the end. But I also repotted and divided as necessary all of my other Cymbidiums. So we are going to now water and feed them. And I am going to use the same mix for my only cold cattleya, which is this Laelia anceps, which is out here, and that's going to get the full strength tomato food mixture as well. I'm all set up here now to water my Cymbidiums. So what I've done is I've transferred the water and feed from the large watering can to this small manageable watering can, and I have a bucket here with a grill on top, and I'm going to use that to just place my Cymbidiums on top. Now of course on a dry day I'd bring the plants outside and just water them on the grass outside, but it's a rainy day so I don't want to bring them out. And I need to ascertain first whether the Cymbidium actually needs watering, and I'll do that by sticking my finger into the medium to see if it's dry enough. Of course this is a little bit tricky when the plants are kept quite cold at a 5-degree minimum, because cold often feels like wet, but I think it is time to water these Cymbidiums, and I do this about every 9 days in winter, but again just making sure that the plants are in the right condition to be watered. So I'm going to just pour this through the top here, and you can hear it falling down below, which is grand, and that's enough. Now I would go mad watering in summer, making sure they were absolutely drenched, but in winter I think that's really enough. I'll just let that dry, drip dry there for a few minutes so that we don't extend lots of water around the place. And now I'll transfer it over to where it belongs. It's dripping a little bit, but we can probably deal with that. And I'll move in my next Cymbidium for watering, which seems to have a flower spike. It's got a flower spike there, look at that. And it's got another flower spike there that is just opening. So this is really good news considering these plants were just divided in September, which is really the wrong end of the year to be doing it. Okay, I need to fill up the small watering can again. And here we are, watering the Cymbidium all the way around and just letting it drain. And as that one drains, I can just bring a smaller Cymbidium to the front here and do it. And the idea with this draining system is not to share water, because we all know that's bad news for orchids. Less so for Cymbidiums, but bad news for orchids. So that's a lovely black flowered Cymbidium that I can't wait to flower again for me. And then we'll do the hanging green one here. No space. I'll need to move some things off, I think. And here we are watering the hanging green one, which I've repotted in this taller pot. So I hope that's going to look nice when it's come in flower, and the flowers will kind of hang down. And we have some new growths on it, so if you come in here and have a look, see in there, I hope that one's going to be a flower spike. Okay, so moving this one over, and then the final Cymbidium I'm going to water is the big lad here, which is the one you saw me dividing. A no ID with yellow flowers, and it has some new growths, so hopefully those will produce some flowers soon. And we're giving it a bit of a water and a bit of a feed, and I hope it will reward me in spring with some nice flowers. Okay, what we also need to do is the Cattleya. And I'm now going to water my Laelia anceps with the full strength tomato food. Obviously this plant is one that needs a bit of a repotting. It's way out over the front, but it's very hard to find a suitably shaped container for this plant. unfortunately, and I just give some of the roots here at the front a bit of a watering. And that's that done. Now, the other thing that I'm going to water out here is my Coleogenes, and I've got 2 Coleogenes cristata, and I'm not going to give them full strength tomato food as we've done with the Cymbidiums and with the Cattleyas, but what I am going to do is to continue watering them and feeding them at low strength through the winter. And we saw in my recent video at Kew Gardens how they do that with their cristata. They keep them watered all through the winter, which goes contrary to many of the bits of advice that you get online or in other places for Coleogenes cristata, and it doesn't stop flowering according to Kew Gardens. Now, this is a piece of advice I'd heard years ago, and I used to water in a cool greenhouse all through the winter, and they did really fine for me, but then for some reason I stopped. So I'm going back to that system again now, and we are going to water the Coleogenes. So here's my Coleogenes cristata, and I'm just going to water it where there is gaps. Now I'm going to try my best not to get it wet on top, like not to wet the pseudobulbs and the leaves. At Kew Gardens they have temperatures that are higher than mine here, so if I get wet leaves or pseudobulbs there's a danger of rotting at my cooler temperatures of 5-degree minimum. But what I'm doing is just going around and wetting the mixture that I can reach and doing my best not to wet the pseudobulbs. Okay, so that's enough, and I'm going to keep doing this through the winter while my plants, whenever my plants dry out. That's very noisy and very wet. And I don't know about you, but I'm a bit fed up and cold out here in the greenhouse. So what I'd really like is to go inside and have a look at the warm growing orchids and see how they're doing and share my new flowers and buds with you. So now we're back indoors again, and we're going to have a look at some of my orchids in bloom. And the very first thing I want to tell you about and show you, I guess, is this wonderful Oncidium Cherry baby, which you saw in my last orchid update, but is still going strong and pumping out its amazing scent of vanilla and chocolate all around the kitchen. You can see right at the top there that it's beginning to go over now. We have a couple of flowers that have gone over, but it's still going. And what an absolutely fantastic tonic this makes on a very wet and windy November day. It's just disgusting out there at the moment. And below my Oncidium Cherry baby, the good news is that my Oncidium Sotowanum is now in flower. And here we have it in all its pink glory. And let's have a look, a close-up of the flowers. Now this is another one that has an amazing scent. It really smells like candy floss. A fantastic, glorious scent. And even he who doesn't like the scent of Cherry Baby loves the scent of the Sotowanum. Now this is a parent of the hybrid commonly known as Twinkle. And you can tell the family resemblance by the fact that this species, Oncidium, produces a whole load of small scented flowers all over the plant. And that has lent itself very well to hybridization. Over here, just below Cherry Baby, we have the Phalaenopsis known as Elegant Peach. And it is producing a new flower spike, which you can see there. So the old one, which is that really, really long one, has finished flowering, but we're now going to get a second one. So that's really good news. And here in the central aisle, we have a couple of puffs, one in flower, and this one here is Phalaenopsis Pinocchio, the sequential flower with the whiskers that everybody loves, and it's doing really well. The colours are the normal colours. I had feared that it was going to be redder than normal, but it was just the spectrum on my grow light upstairs had made it appeared red. When I took it out from underneath that grow light, then I could see that it was the normal colour again. So that's going to flower for a long time, because as we can see here, there are other buds coming, and this will go on and on for some time. Behind we have the no ID Phalaenopsis that my husband got from me from a garden centre, and it's sending up a second spike, which is really good news, and that's going to flower for a long time. And behind we have my complex hybrid Paphiopedilum, which is just opening. And if we come back in a few days, we're going to see that in full bloom, I guess. And in the meantime, we can enjoy the hairiness on the back of its neck. Moving over from there to the left hand side, we can see two orchids in flower, and I guess the first one that needs no introduction is the wonderful Cyclopses Mariposa, which stands tall and strong and looks very much like a samurai. Well, to my mind anyway. Gorgeous orange flower that is upright and producing those three tall antennae that come off the top and really help make this plant look like an alien from another planet. That's what I always think when I see them. Anyway, I'm happy that this flower has unfurled, and again this is a sequential bloomer, so I shall expect the spike from which this plant has emerged to continue flowering for some time. And I think the plant does need a repot, but I'm going to wait until I see some active root growth, because we all know what happens to Cyclopses when they get repotted. They tend to go downhill, and I want to see if I can do better when I eventually get around to repotting it. So that's my Cyclopses Mariposa, and it's flanked just here by a little Phalaenopsis, and this is the small one that was supposed to be orange. So this was Equestris, and as you can see, it has finally opened, but as you can also see, it is not orange, which is a bit of a disappointment, but it's a very pretty little flower. And whereas I already have Equestris, I think the flowers on this one are slightly different to the one I have already, or the two that I have already, so I'm happy to include it in my collection. Love the dark lip there, and the petals seem to have an edge of white around them, which is extremely attractive. So coming down from those plants, I guess the breaking news really down below is the fact that the Phalaenopsis I was given by my son's teacher, the one with the keiki in bud, has finally opened. And oh dear, it's just a white Phalaenopsis. How disappointing. Nothing subtle about it, nothing different about it, no tinges to the back of the petals or anything. It's just a white Phalaenopsis. But you know what, it's in flower, so we'll enjoy it as it comes. And you can see here how this is still a keiki on the mother plant. Those are its roots and its leaves, and down below there is the parent plant. Nope, that's an Oncidium behind it. Down there is the parent plant that this is extending off. And just a few final things I want to show you, one of which is this Dendrobium sanderi, and this doesn't live here. It's come in from another room where it has produced these flower buds. Look, looking really good. Now this one is in isolation. It may have some mealy on it, so I'm not going to keep in here for very long, but there's another set of buds up there. And we're going to finish up this video on this horrible wet blustery day. Look at it outside, it's disgraceful, with a shot of George King Serendipity, which you'll have seen in my last update was just opened, and since then it's deepened in colour and it started pumping out this really kind of spicy scent in the bedroom. Really, really pleased with this. It's a gorgeous flower that's lasted a long time. And the petals are a really kind of dusky antique pink that I absolutely love. And they have sparkles on them too, but you can't see that here. Don't know what those two white dots are there. They're not mealies, which you might be forgiven for thinking, since this one is one in isolation as well, up in the mealy corner on the naughty step. But a beautiful, beautiful bloom, and no curling of the sepals or petals as many Cattleyas will tend to do when grown in less than an ideal environment, which of course is what we all have in our houses. Our houses are not in an ideal environment. Okay, so that was my orchid roundup for the moment. Hope you liked it, and I hope you saw some beauties there that perhaps you grow, or got some information about particular plants that you might consider adopting in your own environment. Thanks very much for watching, and see you on the next video.